Hey everybody, it is 8:03 Central Standard Time, which would make it, wow, 7:03 in the mountains and 9:03 in the east. Yeah, so this is kind of an early start. But welcome to kind of more time experiment for Zenny62 and a bit of an earlier time slot, just to see how this works, you know. And so far, it looks like it's working pretty good. I was trying to find that sweet spot. Hey, John Marks, how y'all doing? How you doing? And Richard Hike, how you doing? Happy New Year. This actually feels pretty good, you know, to start at this time. Hey, Barry, it's just right after the dinner hour, but not so late that people are just kind of like, oh, dude, I'm going to bed, right? Although we might get some of that. Hello. Hey, is anyone of you here suffering through the winter cyclone in Boston? Because they're only. Hey, Ed Reed, appreciate you too. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. That was very nice. Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you. It's Donis. How are you? Donis asks, for those of you watching this as a video on demand, I'm reading chats, and Donis asks, any progress? And Christian Navarro informs us that he suffered a deadly earthquake in Hayward. Hey, I live in Oakland, and all my friends were shaken up. Excuse the pun. But did anyone die? I didn't see that part. Donis, you ask any progress? Any progress on what? Please clarify. There is a lot to talk about. I'm going to do so within a tight time frame, but I chose this time slot because of Octavio Arias. Brian Allah says, you always keep me updated. Thank you. Mr. Torre, I appreciate that. Happy to be of service. Absolutely. Completely happy. Mr. Lee, if you tweet this out, tweet the title with this hashtag, livestream. Thank you. Donis says, Raiders Vegas, any progress? Well, hey, Hennessy, how are you? How are you doing? The Regents met today. There was no live stream. If there was, I couldn't find one. Thank you, Barry, for sending the tweet. And however, I know that I'm trying to contact one of the Regents. I don't want to give away this person's name because I don't want anyone to go in and try to sabotage what I'm about to do. But hey, Eric Madison, how are you? Not that they could actually do that. But I've got a lot of feelers out there. I'm trying to get an interview with John Gruden. I've got an email to him. I called his number, left a message. I've got 2 messages into the Regents over there. I've got questions I'm asking, and this is part of my overall New Year's resolution to self to be more aggressive. And Eric Guerrero says, hi, Zenny, appreciate the info, good time slot. Thank you very much, much appreciated. Thank you. And as to your question, Donis, the update is they being the UNLV Regents, got the first crack at talking about the proposal. And what came out of it, if you believe the tweets, here's the problem. I'm going to report to you what the tweets said and the report said. And then after I do so, I'm going to give you this proviso, all right? First of all, the question was that there was no exit clause in the contract, okay? And that was the main issue. And that's still outstanding. The other comment that came out loud and clear to me is one of the Regents expressed dismay to the attorneys representing UNLV that they seem more interested, they being UNLV attorneys, in the Raiders' position than that of the university. When you are in a situation like that, okay, you know doggone well you've hired the wrong people. Because you can best be sure the Raiders' attorneys are not thinking about what is in the best interest of UNLV. They're thinking about what is in the best interest of the Raiders. The Raiders don't play that. UNLV shouldn't either. That's sad. that's sad. Uh, Crawford says exit clause. That's a bad sign for the project. Yeah, well, that they don't have one. And to me, the worst sign for UNLV is that they seem so ready to rubber stamp it. Now, one account by News 3 out Las Vegas had it that the meeting was contentious. Okay, the Review Journal perspective is always Pollyannish, or it has been of late. And here's why I don't trust the Review Journal, and I'm just saying straight up, I don't. The Review Journal, in my humble opinion, is unethical. My humble opinion, and here's why I say that. Because they don't announce where they're coming from. The owner of the organization, the great Sheldon Adelson, kickstarted this whole Raiders pursuit of a stadium in Las Vegas. I think kickstart is the appropriate term. Then he pulled back, and for about a good 4 months, if you recall, the Review Journal issued reports that were critical and analytical, or as much as they could be, of the project. Then after 4 months, they went into this less critical, more informative, but giving you details, and then they went full on cheerleader. Okay, and now they're full on cheerleader. And Andy Aboud, the government affairs representative for Las Vegas Sands, has been full on cheerleader. So I don't trust it, all right? I don't trust, and it's nothing personal against Rich Velota or certainly my friend Ed Graney, but, you know, Ed, God love him, was honest with me. He said, hey, look, Zenny, I can't talk with you on video about this because I'll get fired. Enough said. Enough said. That was all I needed to hear. I know the situation. But my point is, the Review Journal should not put their writers in that position. That's horrible. And John Mark says, I agree with Zinni. And Crawford says the Review Journal is sabotage news. Brian says, yes, why would they shut them down? That casino in Vegas was awesome. Barry Lee says, so how can Vegas support an NFL team when a new casino can't even make it? Ding! You talk about the Lucky Dragon? Hey, there's a problem. And that's what I'm saying. Vegas, in this instance, and I want to put it on Vegas in total because I know, I'm quite certain the mayor of Las Vegas would have some really choice words about how this project has been handled if I asked her. Okay, she's been noticeably silent about this entire thing. So Eric Guerrero says, share it on Facebook. Mr. Guerrero, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Eric Madison says, the thing with UNLV is they take the deal. I really believe the athletic department will fold if they go bankrupt, and I'll not take the deal if I'm a Regents of the university. They shouldn't, because there's no spreadsheet that's governing their discussions. They don't know. It doesn't matter if the rent's going to be, is it $250,000 a game? Okay, or is it $250,000 a season? If it's $250,000 a game, 2 times 8 is 16. So you're looking at, you're looking at almost $2 million, something like that. So you've got, because Stephen Hill said it's not 250K, he says more like 160K. But is that per game or per season? If it's per season, that's a bargain. But if it's $150,000 per game, let's say it's $160,000 per game. All right, and that's $1.2 million a year in rent, and that's about what I had said it was going to be, 1.2 million in rent. But then you have to make absolutely certain, if it's 1.2 million, you got to make certain that that offset revenue is enough to put you over that, plus whatever ad sales that you are able to achieve there, okay? And they need to have a spreadsheet working this out so that at the end of the day, they come out plus. If they're not doing it that way, that's a bad, bad situation. That's like the famous monkeys, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Wow. Hennessy says, I think you're right, Hennessy. UNLV is getting bullied. Right. And Brian Torrey says 1.2 million. Wow, right. And Crawford says, if this is the case, UNLV better come up with a draft of their own. Thank you. It's the, right. And hey, Rick Gray, how are you? How you doing? Eric Young says, wait, who's bullying UNLV? The mystique of the Raiders, from what I'm observing through this, screen of social media reports and reading the documents and knowing how these things should be done, is influencing UNLV and perhaps somebody else. Saying maybe it's Sisolak in the room and showing up with Tommy White and they're kind of like you're playing bad cop and batter and saying you got to do this deal right now, and you got Stephen Hill with them. And so it becomes like the 3 of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or something, and they're all in the room and they're all like, yeah. So I'm being facetious, but my point is that they're not coming up with a deal that's in their best interest at this point. So hey, go CSU, how you doing? John Mark says the mystique of the Raiders is dead on arrival. Go CSU says, how is everyone doing? We're awesome. I hope you are doing well in Colorado, Bear. So that's it. Oh, by the way, some of you may wonder what the whole NFL, NBA, CES 2008 Las Vegas is all about. It is in Las Vegas. I didn't put that ending up there. I'll tell you that in a second. Crawford says, if I'm a lawyer representing UNLV, I'll recommend that they reject the deal and wait until the deadline to get their own stadium or force the Raiders to write up a new proposal. John Davis says, there's only 8 Raider games. All other event profits from the stadium go to UNLV, right? No. Whoa, John. Oh, oh, you poor person. John, no, not at all. John. Hey, John, how old are you, by the way? I need to adjust what I'm about to say. How old are you? Eric May says, well said, Crawford. You're 55. Okay, now I'm going to be hard on you. Okay, because of this. Not hardy, I'm being facetious, all right? I'm being facetious. Here's the deal. Stadco, in the documents, and I know you don't have time to read the documents, so that's why you turn to me for, and I get that, I appreciate that. Stadco represents the Raiders. The Raiders get the monies from the events, not UNLV. UNLV only is able to collect the lion's share of revenue from the 3 events outside of the games. It's allowed to hold at the stadium. So UNLV is very much a tenant in a stadium that originally it was supposed to be jointly sharing with the Raiders. It's not doing that at all. And the Raiders would say, well, it's because we're putting in $1 billion. Well, technically they're not. The Raiders aren't putting in $1 billion of their own money at all. Not even close. So, but they say that as a way of, because they don't believe that you're going to challenge them on the number. And then there's me. So, because I know the truth. And it's easy to figure out. Jamal Miller says, Deadly Earthquake, and cool. Brian Summers says, okay. Anyway, Christian Navarro says, got it. They're talking about the earthquake, too. We'll get to that in a second. But anyway, I want to get back to the UNLV question and the point here. But John Davis, do you get that? In other words, UNLV doesn't get all the revenue at all. They get to keep ad revenue associated with their games. And so that, what that boils down to is the ring around the stadium that has sponsor signs you can swap in and out electronically. When UNLV plays, those will come up, and then UNLV's ability to collect revenue kicks in. Because ostensibly, UNLV would have signed up some organization whose logo would be shown on that strip or down at the field, okay? So you have to remember, when you're talking about sponsorships, there's a term in the sponsorship industry, sports sponsorships, called activations. And what a sponsorship monitor looks for is how that person's brand is represented. I mean, let's say that, you know, for example, um, if it were if I had a sponsor for this, right, I would have to have a sign that, well, you guys have seen me hold up like water. Let's say if I have a sponsor, I would say, not that this is my sponsor, but this is brought to you by purified water, right? Or this is brought to you by Pocket Pocket Pack, you know, that sort of thing. That's a brand. A sponsorship monitor is going to look for the number of times and the length of times that their brand is mentioned and logo is shown. And that applies to UNLV. It's only during that period that UNLV gets to collect the revenue, not during Raider games, all right, or anything else. So Hennessy says, Raider fan that said we're taking over the LA Chargers game couldn't even sell out that soccer stadium. So how could they with a 60,000 seat stadium? Oops. You know, I never checked, Hennessy, I never checked the attendance for the Raiders game. They didn't sell out that? Yeah, wow, 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 wow. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Jamal Mills, deadly earthquake in Hayward? No, Jamal wasn't deadly. Jamal's in Atlanta. Christian says, nah, just 4.5 at 2 a.m. Pacific time. Hey, Christian, I got to ask you, did it wake you up? Brian O'Torre says, sorry to interrupt, but subscribe to my channel. I have 0. You got it. Subscribe to, let's give some love to him when we can, okay? And Lonely on Top, how you doing? He says, I'm still thinking they're going to stay in Oakland. And, oh, Brian, you don't, Crawford says, it's a desperation attempt from the Gruden deal. The ad in Southern California to get fans. The franchise has had a load of bad karma. John Davis says, so if Guns N' Roses plays there, who gets the money from parking, concession stands, and ads there? The Raiders. The Raiders are Stadium Co. And the Raiders are I am told, to hire Legends Events and Concessions. That's the organization that's owned by Jerry Jones. And so the Raiders will split that revenue with them. But the Raiders have to have, and this has already been calculated out, let me help you in total. The Raiders are expected to have $309 million in total revenue, stadium revenue, including sponsorships, over the life of total event, over the life of it. I've got, let me review my spreadsheet to make sure I'm not talking out of my tail here, because that's wrong. It's not total, that's not right. But in terms of sponsorships, it is, and that's $1 billion. They need, that's 700 million less than what they need for the stadium to break even. So right now, what I'm telling you is based on what the SNTIC put together in its model initially. The stadium is underwater before it's built. All right, it's right there in the numbers. I'm going to show them to you. But for those of you who haven't seen them, the stadium is always underwater before it's built. Underwater meaning that it's running a deficit. And I'm not talking about the bond problem. That's separate. I'm talking about what they propose for the stadium in terms of the financing. All right, and the cost structure. So let me, I'm waiting for this spinning wheel of death on the Mac to stop spinning. Black Lion Supreme, nice to have you here. Hold on a second. And let me go back to make sure I got this up. And then file, open document. Oh, come on, open up, please. Sounds like Popeye. Open. How come I keep quoting a cartoon I really hate? Whatever. I did say that. Hold on a second. An old one at that. You watched me new cartoons lately. Except, you know what, the cartoon I actually really like is Star Trek Animated. Yeah, that goes back to 1973, before some of you were born. But I really enjoyed that, the Star Trek Animated series. I like the way that Kirk would run, the Kirk and Spock would run. This is the old Filmation animation. They would run like this. John Marks might remember that. And anyway, I'm opening up, I'm buying the time to open up this stupid spreadsheet that I made, which isn't so stupid after all. And so now it's opening. Okay, now I can quote numbers and feel confident because they're right in front of me. And let me, since we're talking about UNLV deal, let me bring you down here, all right? This is the spreadsheet for those of you who haven't seen it. This is what I'm referring to right now, all right? These are this is total annual event revenue, 31 million, which translates to 934 million total, okay? So total stadium revenue is this, all right? But that revenue has to be offset by its expenses, okay? And so you have debt service and capital, right? You've got to pay back, all right? So you've got the operating expenses are here at 646 million, okay? So you still come out ahead, but guess what? You have the debt service, you have to pay this back. And this is where you come into trouble, all right? The capital expenditure is 75 million. So that total debt service and capital alone is 960 million. So that's what gets you into this negative free stadium operating cash flow. So this loan that JT the Brick was talking about, he said it's 500 million, it's actually 850 million. You add the interest. The Raiders have to pay this back. This is not free money, all right? This is what runs you into trouble. And that's why I said the Raiders need to make sure that they have $1 billion in sponsorship revenue. Right now, your total non-event revenue, your sponsorship revenue, that's at $309 million. This needs to be $700 million greater for the Raiders to have any breathing room. Or if you like, it really needs to be, they need 400 million more. Okay, so if you add, even if you add this and this, let's just conservatively say here and here, let's just say they need about let's just say they need 362 million more in sponsorship revenue. This includes naming rights. So to make it easy on you, the naming rights should be double what it is. That's the main difference. That's the main difference. And you would say, how did we get to this point? Well, it's the problem has to do with the fact that that money that they're getting from Bank of America is, again, it's money that they have to pay back that they didn't originally factor in. Sheldon Adelson was going to just basically give it. I know that one of the attorneys, I'm not going to mention his name, bristles at my description. But the simple fact of the matter, mister, is that there was no set determined percentage upon which Adelson was going to collect revenue. That's why he wanted ownership. And when I presented that to the person I talked to, he went silent because he doesn't know that part of the deal like I do, because he's an attorney and he wasn't looking at it from a number standpoint like I was. He didn't even know the current numerical situation. This is one of the major attorneys on the project. Just being honest with you, okay? And I'm not going to say the person's name. I'm not trying to get these folks in trouble, but I'm trying to give you an honest picture of where we are with this thing. So, okay, so Black Ryan Supreme says, hey, Zenny, good evening. Where are the Raiders going to get $1 billion from? Well, the good news for the Raiders in this is that they're only about, let's say, $400 million in total from where they need to be. The bad news is they have to come up with that additional $400 million. And and to put a fine point on it, that's $400 million in non-event revenue. That means sponsorships. So the total revenue they need in sponsorships is $700 to $800 million. You want a comparison? Atlanta coolly raised $1 billion for its stadium and has exactly the same Bank of America loan at $850 million, same terms and everything that the Raiders do. In fact, I believe they have 20 years to pay that off and not 30. I was very kind in mine. I used a 30-year spread. If I used a 20-year spread, these numbers in terms of the upfront, the first 20 years would look worse. Because I could break it out as a ledger, right, and say year. I just took it all as one and slammed them together without respect for timing. But if they have to pay that back in 20 years, the Raiders are even more in the hook. They have to come up with more upfront money. So, having said that, I would say Now, you know, they have to come with more money up front, or they have to. Let me put it this way: they have to come up with the same amount of money up front. They couldn't spread it out. The Falcons came up with their $1 billion like that. Okay. Mercedes-Benz, cool chunk of that. Porsche, another chunk of that. Coca-Cola, another chunk of that. Think of the organizations I've already named. Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Coca-Cola. All of them having a presence in where? Atlanta. Atlanta. None of them have a presence in Las Vegas or Nevada. The rule of thumb is you get your major local businesses to buy sponsorships in your stadium. If the casinos are not coughing up money to be a part of that now, why should anybody expect them to cough up money to be a part of it in the future? Riddle me that. Okay, right now, I don't care if it's $309 million or the total of $750 million that they actually need. It doesn't matter. They don't have it right now. And yeah, that's a major problem. It just really is. So let me go back to your points here. Rick Gray says, Ticketmaster, what? Rick Gray said something interesting here. He says, Rick Gray said, hey, Rick Rice, how you doing? Hey, Rick Gray says, Ticketmaster charges 33 to 37% over ticket prices as their fee. Can the Raiders just charge 37% fee on every ticket to make up the difference as a surcharge? They would have to write the bond. They would have to write, yeah, they could do that. But my question is, would that yield enough money over time to do that? And I haven't calculated that out. Let me see something. I mean, something else you have to think about here. You're talking about raising ticket prices by 1/3 to pay for the stadium. So basically, if I've got a ticket that's $100, then it's $133. Am I going to spend $133 to sit in a nosebleed seat versus $100? That's what a microeconomists would call a utility curve concern. What is that? It means, okay, if I have a curve here and I have a level of prices and my likelihood of buying it here, all right, you're putting me further higher on the curve where I'm less likely to buy it. It's actually kind of the curve is actually reversed, okay, where I'm less likely to buy it. That's a huge chunk. So you can't just say, boom, I'm going to put up 37% and I've solved the problem. Because if you don't sell those tickets, guess what? You got an enormously larger problem. Okay? That's, again, when you're thinking about these things, it's always important to remember your math in terms of summing for zero. You've got positive impacts, negative impacts. You have to think of, with every idea you have, there's a cost and a benefit. So you have to do a cost-benefit analysis for every idea you come up with. That's all I'm doing. So, Richard says, I was at the Chargers game. Lots of empty seats. Wow. Christian Navarro says, whoop, the earthquake woke him up. Vito 510 says it woke him up too. Crawford says in the Bay Area that sponsor money will swallow the debt at the snap of a finger at most. The sponsor money in the Bay Area, you get a lot of sponsors in the Bay Area. Bay Area is a major corporate city. The Raiders blew it and have blown it by not milking the Bay Area. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Raiders should be ashamed of themselves for not being able to make a business go of it in the San Francisco Bay Area at this point in time. There is no excuse for this other than business incompetence. And I said it just like that. And I said it to challenge them. Okay? And if they can't make it go over in the Bay Area, how the heck are they going to make it go over greatly in Vegas? Because it's non-tech? Doesn't make any sense. You're selling your business. It's the same thing either place. Makes no sense whatsoever. In my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion, the Raiders have had a problem in this area and they haven't shored it up. Eric Mann, Secret Grace says fees on any non-football games like $10 for general seating, $20 on clubs, $75 on all seat tickets, $30 on non-football. Yeah, but you do all that, okay? Again, you hike fees on stuff. You make the assumption that it's a 100% absorption, 100% sales rate. That is ridiculous. This is not a luxury good in the classic sense. It only becomes a luxury good if the Raiders. That's what's fascinating about the NFL. If the Raiders were playing the Jaguars regular season this year, or the Tennessee Titans, or the Cleveland Browns, a better example, buying a ticket to that game would not be considered a luxury good. But if it were the Dallas Cowboys, yes. That simple distinction means that the fees you hype on to pay for stuff, it means it's less likely that those tickets are going to be sold, which means that you still have your problem. So, Rick Gray, yeah. Well, John Mark says Vegas is financially bad and the Raiders will just add more debt. Carver says this deal is dying. It's this. Vegas will rubber stamp it, and so will the NFL. Yeah, but then you know what? When push comes to shove and the Raiders need help, the owners are going to go like, because it's the amount of money. Now, if the Raiders can hold it, if the Raiders can go national with their sponsorship ask, have a great presentation, okay, they could possibly salvage this deal. But I'm telling you, the fact that they are in a poor media market means it's less likely that they're going to come up with this gigantic, enormous naming rights deal. The 49ers have a $224 million naming rights deal in the Bay Area. You're going to tell me, and the Bay Area is the 6th largest media market, you're going to tell me that the Raiders are going to come up with a $500 to $600 million naming rights deal there? No. Okay. Okay. I mean, I loved, if they do that, I want to meet the person that sold the deal. Because I just can't see that happening. I can't. Again, if the Niners can only do 224 for Levi, I remember Levi is a local organization. Find me a casino company that's going to cough up that kind of money. Excuse me, more than that kind of money, because the Raiders are going to need more than that. And I say casino knowing that I think the NFL will allow that. Nick Z says, hey, Zinni, did you see the video Derek Carr made from home answering questions on Del Rio Gruden? I did. Yes, I did. I saw that. Yeah, I thought he expressed kind words for Gruden. John Davis asks, he says, so only UNLV events. Do they get some of the profits? No, they do not. No. Unless they have many events to make up their money, you're right, could be a bad deal. Yeah, John Davis, you're asking great questions. You ought to be one of the regents because you're asking questions. You are thinking about this as UNLV should be thinking about it. Hey, I thought we were partners in this. Why are you giving us, just this little pittance stuff? That's what they ought to be asking. And I wasn't in the Regents meeting, and it may very well have been that was brought up, but it wasn't mentioned by the press. So just saying. Richard Hike says, this isn't even touching on the interest on the loans. Well, actually, I did in the Bank of America case, and I'll show you that, Richard. Because as Eric Grumman and I discussed, the Bank of America loan is a straight loan. Loan with interest. That's it. Hennessy says, let's remember Mark Davis said he would go broke for this deal. That's correct. He did say that. He's been keeping that promise. But I don't believe Mark Davis will be the owner in the next 2 years. And Hennessy, I have a feeling that you're going to be correct. Something else, too. Watch out for this. The way the non-relocation agreement, which has not been signed, right, looks is such that it mentions Mark Davis has to be the controlling person. Suppose the Raiders decide to give the controls to his mom. That immediately negates the non-relocation agreement. They don't have to follow it. It'll be rendered void upon signature. All right? So, Sadnan's Place says, is it something they have to pay off soon, or do you have a long period of time? You're talking about the loan. As I understand, the loan is actually like 5 to 20 years. with Bank of America. I'll nail that down. It's a good question if that's what you're asking me. Okay. Um, and so John Mark says, why is the media rubber stamping this deal? Because you have editors. Okay, let's look at it this way. You only have you have the Las Vegas Sun, the Nevada Independent, and the Review Journal among the publications, and then Zenny 62 Media are the ones that are regularly covering this. Okay, so of the four, you got one that is outside, and that's me, right? That's pro Raiders in Oakland Raiders. You got the Review Journal, owned by Sheldon Adelson, which kickstarted the deal. You got the Sun, which, is just trying to keep up. I don't know who owns the Sun. You never bothered to check that either. But I know the Sun has been like 3/4 cheerleader, 1/4 critical. Okay? And they don't have as much money as the Review Journal, so the person they have to cover the matter, that person doesn't produce as much content. You can tell because, hey, look, hey, he's getting paid per piece. And so he's only going to do as much as he can make money on, and there you go. All right. So so you've got, and then you have editors and publishers that want, this is how your publication works. You want to get businesses in the Las Vegas area to buy ads. If those businesses happen to be pro-stadium, there is a percentage likelihood that they're not going to buy an ad in your paper or your website if you are negative. That's just how it works. So they have to toe a line. I don't have to toe that line. So between us, it's a nice balancing act, right? You got the critical guy who represents Oakland, who admits where he's coming from. You got the Review Journal that's kind of not really admitting what they're coming from, and neither is the Las Vegas Sun. And you've got the Independent, which does what it can, when it can, and does do analytical pieces once every blue moon. That's how it lays out. The bottom line is, in total, it's not a lot of media. And then all of them, you have one person who actually has a background in working with the NFL on stadium budgets, financing with respect to the Super Bowl. That's me. You have one person who has the background in urban planning. That's me. You have one person who in high school developed a design and schematic drawing for a stadium that, if it were built today, could fit within it, the stadium the Raiders are planning, and have room left over for a facility the size of the old Astrodome. That's how big this is in high school I did this, okay? So I've lived with this stuff a long time. And then you have the other guys who've never done that. They just write and ask questions. But even they don't know the right questions to ask. So that's how it lays out, John Marks. I got Rick Gray. Rick Gray says, eliminate PSLs, charge 33 to 37%. So, well, if you eliminate the PSLs, you've immediately taken out $250 million from the stadium construction costs. So you put the Raiders $250 million in the hole, and that amount that you're charging, just ballparking it, and you're saying that percentage, just looking at it, $1.5 billion over 30 years, you charging $232 per ticket. I'm going to tell you something. You're going to charge $232.5 per ticket just for stadium financing. On top of the ticket itself, dude, you're not going to be selling any tickets. Just saying, all right? Aaron Blaylock, how you doing? The Raiders didn't even try. Very backward ran. All left to them on condition because of his ego. Vito Vitens, there's so much money here in the Bay. There is. Eric Madison says, if you stay in Oakland, can you get local Fortune 500 companies and a lot of international companies to have offices in the Bay Area, and the Raiders have massive sponsorship revenue in Oakland? Yes. Marcellus Thomas, how are you doing? And Saturn Play says, you think the Raiders should go worldwide like the Warriors do with their sponsorships? Yeah. In fact, that's a major problem. That if you look at the Raiders, they have, what, They have an Espanol website and an English website. Where's the French website? Where's the Mandarin website? Where's the Swahili website? Where is, you get the idea, where's the Hebrew website, okay? You may laugh, but all those languages open doors to businesses around the world. Where's the Chinese website? You see them get? Those open doors. The Raiders haven't opened that door. So that's just one example. The Raiders are not the only NFL team to be poorly managed in this way. This is a tremendous problem in the NFL that I contend is only going to get worse as the United States population becomes more and more internationally integrated, or if you like, more reflective of immigrants. Okay, so like as if it never was. John Marks says, I'm not going to repeat that one. Marcellus Thomas says, Jerry Jones Legends is responsible for selling naming rights. Okay, so then they've got a tough job. It's one thing to get, you know, 400 million or 500 million in Dallas, but they're going to have to basically turn over. Jerry Jones is basically going to have to come into the office and give the presentation of his life and do something really stupid and rash in the presentation to get that money from Mark Davis. That's the only way that's going to happen. However, you know, all kidding aside, the other way it could happen is if they got AT&T to do a joint deal with the Cowboys for dual sponsorship. You know, in other words, one company, right? AT&T, 2 stadiums. And if they made the right pitch under those circumstances, where what they would have to do is they would have to show AT&T how even during non-Raider games, the AT&T image with respect to Vegas was well represented. They would have to do that. And they would have to show the exposure that their brand would get at the Las Vegas Strip on the marquee around the stadium. They haven't shown that yet. They would have to take Las Vegas Stadium off and put, say, AT&T Stadium on it. And you see, even then they run into trouble, because on a good day, the exposure for the stadium in Vegas is less than it is in Dallas, because Dallas has a bigger population. And the Bay Area is even larger. You see what I'm getting at? And the media market's even larger. So that's still a very, very tough sell. It's still a very tough sell. What it boils down to is the Raiders not getting enough money. I don't care if you get close. This isn't nuclear war or horseshoes. You have to have the money. So, and I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm pointing out the problem. Maybe they do a deal with maybe, you know what, if the Raiders are really smart, they go to CES knowing that all of these folks are coming in from the Far East, and they would start making deals with companies in the Far East that are looking to put their names on facilities in America. And they would have a suite at the Wynn, cost you like $12,000, and have events and gatherings. That's what they would do. This is the best time because they're going to be there anyway. Just saying. Hey, the good Marcellus. So we got Rick Gray says, no, not $232 per ticket per tax. The idea is $5 million per game on 9 ticket categories. $232 is average per ticket, tax included. Okay, 9 to 250 in general seating and 3 to right. My whole point is that it's that tax that bothers me. On top, and you can't get rid of the PSLs. The Raiders, that's part of the deal. That's part of the bond issue. That's part of, in fact, Rick, you got to read Nevada Senate Bill 1. It's all right there in black and white. You're basically talking about going outside the bond issue. That's the legal construct, and they have to follow it. If you want to rewrite it, you have to go back to the legislature, and you stand a great chance of the legislature tearing up the deal and quite possibly eliminating the Raiders' ability to get a stadium done. Politically, that's what you open yourself up for. So, if I'm the Raiders, I would take that chance for one reason. The stadium tax isn't big enough. And I would say we need a bigger waterfall. We can share it with education, because right now we have a problem. And I would do that now. If they have confidence in their project, if they believe in what they're doing enough that they can sell it to Nevada and Las Vegas politicians again, they need to do that sale. If not, they need to punt, because economically it's bad. Eric Madison asks an interesting question. He says, would that be conflict of interest thought of if you did a deal with Dallas and Oakland? Eric, that's a very good question. I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer to that. However, I'm going to say that since Jerry Jones owns both Convention Sports and Leaders and a Leisure, and they did, get this, they did most of the market studies associated with the Raiders Vegas Stadium project. Okay? Most of them. If not all, most of them. A. And B, they want the concessions. So C, it looks like there wouldn't be a conflict with what I'm talking about regarding naming rights, but I'll double check that. I'm not going to assume I'm correct. That's a good question. Rick Rice says, Zinni 62 Stadium. I kind of like the sound of that. Rick Rice says, yeah, I know, but like Jamal, I don't see how the sides are acting like it's business as usual. I don't know what you mean by that statement, but maybe you can explain that. Marcellus Thomas says, would Trump allow that, naming rights to Middle Eastern companies? Are you kidding me? The man who's basically financed by Russian oligarchs? In fact, maybe he would want to help by bringing in some Russian oligarchs. I'm just kidding. John Marks says, can Mark Davis still come to the table and negotiate with Oakland new stadium? John Marks, he's already been doing that. I want to clue in people on something. When you're talking about settling the amount of money that you owe for stadium parking, you're already talking stadiums. You're in that room, any subject can come up. Anyone, all right? And to me, there's a reason why the JPA is being so secretive about their conversations with the Raiders in a way they've never been before. Take note of that. Take note of that, okay? So, Stat in Place says, where would you advertise to make money and where? I don't understand your question. Are you saying, where would I advertise to make money and where in the stadium? Yeah, I don't want to guess at what you're asking. Try asking that again, because it says your point of view, or from my point of view, what would I advertise to make money and where? Okay. You mean, if you do me in the Vegas context or the Raiders context? In the Vegas context, I believe they're doing that all wrong. John Marks says, I don't believe that, Ziggy. Sorry, believe what? I'm sorry. There's so many things flying around, John. I apologize. I may have missed something, so forgive me. Can you explain what you mean? Now, coming back to Saturn Plays, he says, from your point of view, what would you do to pay off the debts? Okay. If I were the Raiders, if I put in the position of Mark Bedane, or if Mark Bedane put me in a position to say, hey, let's solve this, I would say, okay, first of all, we have to go on a road show. I need a stadium mock-up, I need a model, and I need a pointer, and I need this model to be movable, and I need to be about, yay big, okay, so I can take it with me and then put it together. And I would then go to Taiwan's coming. I would go to representatives of the People's Republic of China that are coming to CES. I would set these meetings up. If I knew somebody that was involved in tech and said, hey, look, can you help us and get us some contacts, right? Because that's what you need to do at the very ground level. And then I would set up a meeting and I would be prepared to show them not just where the logos are going to go, but you need to calculate out what the stats are for visibility, online and offline. Offline is when people are driving by on the freeway. So the question is, how many times a day does the normal driver go on I-15 going northbound and southbound? That's one. Then what's the pedestrian traffic count total during the year? Because they're going to see it. That's two. All right? Then on your website, you should have the proper exposure for the sponsor. Then you need to calculate what that's going to be. Are you expecting 4 million visitors a month? Right? So you have to put all that together and sell them. But you have to be honest about it. You can't make it look like they're the only game in town, because you need multiple sponsors. All right? So then you have one big meeting with all the potential sponsors, and you give them a party. You show them what they're going to get for it. Are you giving them tickets? Okay. Are you giving them free use of, suites? What do you get? What are they getting for their return? And then you have to show them comparables, because they're going to say, what are other people paying? And if you don't have a comparable, you're going to be dead in the water. And then, since they're trying to do business in the United States, you need to go a step further, and you need to be the connector. You need to be the sort of the mini chamber of commerce that connects them with other business opportunities in Las Vegas, the United States. So that's what you have to be. And then you have to say, okay, how much is that going to cost? Well, how much do you need? And if you need 25 million total, all right, then you're looking at, 25 million. I would say 10 would be 250 million, right? So you're going to need 25 opportunities like that. And the problem, so you're going to need 20 to 25 opportunities like that at 25 million. If you can, that's a tall order, but swing for the fences. Swing for the fences. That's how I would do it. Okay. But it would force a design of the stadium that doesn't occur now. It doesn't have a sponsorship wall on the outside. It doesn't have this one big wall where I can see my major sponsors' logos. One big digital wall, right? It doesn't have that. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot wrong with the way the thing was designed. And not only that, what I'm talking about in terms of how it should be designed for Vegas will be an innovation in sports. That's never been done before. You have this gigantic digital wall outside. Okay? Like that, all right? Simon says, what companies do you know would want to advertise? I think the ones I named, I don't know about the price point's a little high, but given what I presented, the problem the Raiders have is that Vegas in Nevada is a one-trick pony for industries, casino. So they've got to go beyond that. And because they have to go beyond that, and they don't have a situation like Atlanta does with where the Falcons are, Atlanta Falcons are with its rich corporate base, or the Bay Area, or New York, or Chicago, it's going to be tough for them. I'm just being honest. It's really going to be tough for them. So they cannot, and that's why I object to the design to begin with. They can't go with business as usual, and that's what they're trying to do. Vegas needs, because of its situation, because it's a small media market, it needs a unique approach to stadium design and economics, and it's not getting it. So there you are. Hey, Dixon. Deshaun Dixon says, if they're going to do construction, then the Raiders will move. If they move, I'm done with the NFL. They're not doing construction. Nothing's been done. So, Dixon. Dixon says, are they doing construction in Vegas? No, they're not. They're not doing construction. everything's in a holding pattern right now for for Blunt. All right. So let's see here. John Mark says, I don't believe Mark Davis is negotiating a deal with Oakland for a new stadium in Oakland. Okay, that's you. So Black Lions of Priest says, I don't believe any construction has begun in Vegas. No. John Mark says, the problem with the Raiders is that business terms well, I don't think that they are brain dead at all. I think that the Raiders, and I know this from the way Mark Bedane is or can be, are just trying to solve a problem, all right? Mark Bedane, I'm going to say this. You have to feel sorry for Mark because, in a good way. I mean, first of all, I'm sure Mark Davis is making sure that Mark Bedane is well paid. But he's also putting him in a position to do the impossible. And from that perspective, Mark Bedane's got to be sweating bullets. And he's got to be a good politician. He has to think of business ideas on the fly. He has to solve problems that he probably figured were not solvable. And he's undoubtedly telling Mark Davis at some point, you know what, we really can't do this. But he's got to run around and be the person who's the custodian of Mark Davis's dreams. He's the engineer of the implementation of Mark Davis's dreams. Mark Davis gets to say, I want this. If Bedane says, I can't do that, then Mark Davis may very well say, I'll get someone who can. Okay. So that's what's going on. And then on the flip side, from other people I've talked to, there are people who believe that it's Bedane that's driven the whole Vegas thing, even before Davis. I don't believe that. Okay. And I'm just saying that to cover those people who have said that. I don't believe that. In fact, I know that's not the case. So you're saying the Raiders are not moving? Well, they're not moving right now. No. The Raiders aren't moving until, if they move at all, 2022. That's 5 years. I mean, look, let's be sane here, okay? And remember where we're at. It takes, all right, we have a stadium design that's going up, but it takes about good 3 years, 3 to 4 years from land prep to build it and get that thing off the ground. So you got 2018 already. We don't have any cranes out there because we don't have anything that's signed, because we don't have any bond financing. So you've got, if you start anything at all, you're lucky. You're lucky if you see the end of the year, okay? So let's say we're looking at 2019, 2020, 2021. Realistically, 2022. That's what it looks like. We're already into January. Early, but we're already into January. So the realistic timetable says you're not going to make 2020. Now, there are people saying, why don't they just play at Sam Boyd Stadium? Anybody who says that has no understanding of the requirements an NFL team needs to present a game. Just saying. Because if Sam Boyd Stadium were able to hold an NFL game, it would have done so a long time ago. All right. What do I think of Gruden? Great guy. Crawford says, that's a long way. That's a long way. Better off staying in Oakland and renovating a stadium. Yep. That's what I'm saying. And a lot can change during that time. Recession's coming, maybe, hopefully not, you know. A lot. Octavio Arias, I selected this time spot for you, my friend. How you doing? How are you? Hope everything is well. Octavio, the Raiders have not signed. I'm sorry. The Raiders extension matter is supposed to come up later in February. Rick Gray says, Zinni, I have a Google Doc with these figures. Forgot your email. Understand. I don't want their... Yeah, you can send them to me. Sure. Absolutely. My Zinni at zinni62.com. This is my email. Absolutely. ZENNIE at ZENNIE62.com. There you go. Uh, D. Dixon says a lot better change, like a new president. Mr. Dixon, you need to develop that stadium concept online, market, sell it. Just saying. John Mark says, is this time slot permanent, Zinni? Do you think it should be? It's a good question. Do you think it should be? I started at what? 7:30. We started at, Eric Madison says yes. We started at what? 7:30. We started at 8:30, right? Yeah, we started at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Pacific. So normally I'm at the gym. That's the thing. I normally do my gym time. So, when I'm back in, in Georgia, that's why I start late. Because I thought, okay, start gym time, and you start at 11. I like this, though. I mean, Octavia says more people are watching. Yeah, that's true. John Davis says Raiders need a 5-year extension. I'm guessing they will get 2. Amen Forever says, why doesn't the Ronnie Lott Group and the city of Oakland simply just build the stadium so that Mark Davis will simply decide to stay? Oakland should put their money where their mouth is. That's a good question. And I'm trying to think about the schedule thing. So I've got to, if I started this in the East, it would have started at 8:30, which is normally the time I was going to the gym. And it's also dinner time. That's the other thing is I had dinner early. So I said, I have dinner early and I finished. Let me try this. So that's I would have to almost, and when I'm visiting my mom, she hates when I do that. She likes me to sit down and have dinner with her, okay? That's how mom is. Can't you do your work another time? So it's all that put together that led me to do the later, slots, Octavio. And that's why, even though as much as I was trying to move them forward, it's, doing. The nice thing about being back east and starting at 11 o'clock or 11:30, right, is that I had enough time to eat and go to the gym, be fresh. And when I came back, my blood was flowing, and I can go into the late night. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna try to do this when I can, but I'm gonna stick to the normal time slot because, that's where. It works better for me in terms of family. So anyway, Deshaun is your cousin. Got it. Black Lion says, good question. I didn't ask. Let's see here. Oh, I want to get to this. Why doesn't Ronnie Lott Group and the city of Oakland simply just build a stadium so that Mark Davis will simply decide to stay? Oakland should put their money where their mouth is. That is a great question. And it's because the city of Oakland is not ran in a way unlike it was when we had in the 60s. Bob Nahas was not the mayor, but he was the guy that built the Coliseum, where we had people who were willing to just do that. We don't have that now. We have, I'll just say it, we have elected officials that pay more attention to what's going on in Washington than in their own backyard. And they're not obsessed with city building. When you're obsessed with city building, it's, hey, we need a large event center. We're going to put one right there. And it just so happens that event center can handle NFL football, esports gaming worldwide. You get the idea. Do you realize that one of the top 3 stories in Oakland in 2017 was an esports game championship held at Oracle Arena in November? Yeah. There was the Women's March, and that. Those are the 2 top stories in Oakland's history. In international game, the reason why online they were the top stories is because you had people from primarily parts of Europe paying attention to Oakland because of this esports game that was held at Oracle Arena. So no one could tell me that, hey, Oracle Arena should be torn down, or the Coliseum Stadium should be torn down and not refurbished just because of the Raiders. There's more than the Raiders going on in sport. So my point is, forever, you're absolutely right. We should be doing that. We're not doing it, but it is because we don't have elected officials that are willing to make that commitment. I'm just being very honest with you. That's the problem. And we don't ask for them, and we don't vote them into office either. We used to. Consider this. In the Oakland context, okay? In 2013, by this time, we were going in 2014, and we had, 8 candidates for mayor of Oakland. I said 6 last time. It was 8 candidates for mayor of Oakland, including the incumbent Gene Kwan. All right? Now, we have 3. We have Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, Oakland activist Ken Houston, and Katrina Molina, who he works for the great organization Bay Area Women Against Rape. That's it. We don't have anybody else. Ignacio said he was going to run. I thought maybe Nancy Seibotham would put her hat in the ring. I haven't seen anything from her. She's ran before, twice. Saeed Kamaruz told me he was going to run. I didn't see anything from him. So that's now, that would be 6 additional people if they had all signed up, but they didn't do that. By August of this time, Brian Parker had already raised $70,000 for the 2014 mayor's race. He topped $150,000, I believe, by April of 2014. So at one point, he was really kicking butt money raising. Really was. We don't have that competition today. What does that spell? It spells, I'm going to tell you what it spells. It spells disinterest. We don't have people who are interested enough in the office or who can run for it, like myself, easily. I can't do that easily. I've got obligation. But look, I'm one of 400,000 people in Oakland. Well, okay. Shave off the ones that are not, eligible from an age standpoint, but no one tries. If people are really that dissatisfied with the incumbent, don't you think there would be all these 501s that were filed with the city of Oakland, people lining up, getting their signatures and getting their 100 friends to sign their petition so they could do it? Don't you think that? It does not. What does that tell you? So, make sure I get to your questions here. Eric Madison says, what's the age limit? I believe it's 18. Octavia says, I like the area in front of the stadium by the water better. Barry Lee says, no, Pedro, they would play at the stadium because there's enough room to build a new stadium next to the old one. Pedro says, Dolphins refurbish the stadium, it looks cool. Doesn't it look cool? Eric Madison says, no, but Vince bought the trademark to XFL. Bought. Okay, got it. Yeah. John Davis says, XFL is over, I believe. I need to check on that. Sixers JT says, Raiders better not hire our defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz. Khalil Mack has been carrying that defense like God knows what, and you're right about that. Pedro Gallardo says, new stadium plan in Oakland? So if they demolish the Coliseum, Raiders will have to look for a temporary home. Well, no, hold on a second. I didn't say that. But the Raiders would have to look for a temporary home. It could either be Levi Stadium or Cal Memorial Stadium. Cal Memorial Stadium has a legal block on it that would have to be removed. Levi looks better. Maybe AT&T. Just throwing out some possibilities. Heck, why not a refurbished Skyline High School for about $200 million? Just kidding. Brave Script says, if the Raiders defected to the XFL, would they still be able to stay in Oakland? I don't think it's the defect. You just simply have a Raiders version in the XFL and then one in the NFL. As to whether or not that's possible, I need to research that. Octavia says the city is not putting up any money. Well, no more than what they've already put up, which is about $300 million, city and county. Black Lion Supreme says, that's a very good question. John Mark says, when am I going back to Georgia? I think, I'm not sure. Soon, because then I gotta go to Vegas for CES, and that's starts Sunday. So this is going into That's why I'm going to stop this soon because I got to get some sleep. Octavia says 10 p.m. Eastern time is good. Okay. 10 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And Sixer says, fly, Eagles, fly. John Mark says, I'm going to work on that. Got it. Okay. So right now, it's 9:13, which would be 10:13 there. Brazil loves me. Thank you. Eric Madison says, Stanford Stadium. Someone says, they are sad. Oh, Black Lion says, this is why I blame the city of Oakland for the Vegas business more than the Raiders. And I'll tell you why I don't. Because the Raiders never once, and this is why you should never do that, the Raiders never once put together a model of what the Coliseum would look like new in Oakland. You've seen models in Carson and in Vegas, but not in Oakland. That alone should tell you that the Raiders were not treating Oakland properly. So don't tell me that the Raiders did not try. And yet, you know, why do people have a problem just admitting that? Why do you have a problem just admitting that they just didn't try? Why? Yeah, I don't get that. What are they, you afraid they're going to come to your house or something? Criticize them. Hey, maybe you work for the Raiders. I don't know. Let's see here. Crawford says, Levi's or AT&T Park, right? And Senator says, they're sad about it, but it's kind of Oakland's fault that we were leaving. Well, no. It's partly Oakland's fault, but it's the Raiders' fault. If the Raiders wanted to stay in Oakland, the Raiders would have been in Oakland. The Raiders are in Oakland right now. Let me put it this way to you, to make it really easy to understand. Only go with what is obvious. What do we have right now? Where are the Raiders playing this year? Okay. Where are the Raiders playing next year? Coliseum. The Raiders haven't left. They might be making moves to leave. They might be building this here or that here. They might be buying land. Okay, but my point is, they are still in Oakland. And I remind you of something else. And here's a very possible scenario. Suppose the Raiders said, hey, you know what? This whole Vegas deal, monetarily, it just isn't working out right for us. But we're gonna have a training camp there. So let's do a training camp there. And just do that, and we'll keep playing our games in Oakland. Okay? And if you say that that's far-fetched, let me point this out to you. As something to consider. The Dallas Cowboys play their games, or excuse me, have their training camp in Oxnard. At least they had it before they opened up the new one in Frisco, right? So it's very doable. Just letting you know. Just keep that in mind, all right? So hold on a second here. And got that one. And is everybody there? I think everybody is there. Just getting some weird things going on, which happens. As long as I can see a little counter, I know that it's recording, and I know that you're watching, so I'm cool. All right. It's just me. It's just me. All right. So, any other questions there? I am working to improve some things here. iTunes, I'll take that off. Okay, iTunes is out. And I'll turn off Google Chrome. Do that? Yeah. And we'll see what happens there. Okay, cool. All right. Everyone says, I still like your idea. He says, oh, you like to have the idea. Oh, I like your idea too, Eric. Sorry. I'm reading this up here because down here, my browser's decided to take a holiday for a few seconds, my Firefox browser. So until it comes back, it's working on it. Little blue dot is going doing. I don't know if you've ever seen the new Firefox, but the dot goes wang, 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 wang. Anyway, the whole point is, Barry Lee says, I can't believe it's been 25 years since the start of Waco? Yeah. Well, by the way, so let me talk about CES. This is my 9th year covering CES, and a week from tonight, NBA on TNT will be at CES once again. That's right. Inside the NBA with Charles Barkley, Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kenny, the Jet, Smith. They will all be at Las Vegas to produce the best sports basketball talk show out there. They start at 4 o'clock at Sands Expo, and they go from 4 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, it's a marathon, okay? But I'm going to be there. I'm not going to sit there the entire time, but I'm going to be there for the start. So I'm going to run it live stream if they allow me to. I think, yeah, I did it before. Yeah, I did it before. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to this show that they put on. And if you want a preview of what it's going to look like, you can just go back to, hey, Zenny 62 from CES before. In fact, you know the difference? I didn't have live stream on my mobile then. I was just doing videos and uploading them, right? But now I've got live stream on mobile. So yeah, excited. John Davis using the Opera browser. Someone still uses that? Wow. I might go back to that. Octavia says, Oakland is harder to sell by itself. They need to integrate the rest of the Bay Area Raider brand. Well, it's not hard because Oakland's at the center of the Bay Area, so that's a piece of cake. Barry Lee says, how's the planning coming along for the Oscars coverage? I'm behind on that. I need to shore that up. I really do. And Black Lion Supreme says, I have never said that the Raiders had no blame in the madness, but you and I both know an NFL team is like a beautiful woman. You have to act like you want her if you want to stick around. Yeah, I agree with you there. That's true for any economic development that you pursue. But the whole point is, if you're dealing with a woman who's not dealing with you in good faith, in the end you lose. Okay? And at some point, out of respect for yourself, you have to stop. And you have to realize that that person, or in this case organization, is not giving you the respect that you deserve. And that it accurately describes how the Raiders, as the beautiful woman, have treated the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda. If it were a beautiful, as you say, woman that really loved the man, the city of Oakland, they wouldn't do that. But the Raiders really don't love Oakland under Mark Davis. If they did, they wouldn't treat Oakland the way that they did. That's why everyone's looking at court. That's why you go to divorce court. Okay, right? Or, you know, some people would say sexual abandonment. You can sue for that sort of thing. Didn't know that, did you? All of that, from a business perspective, applies here. And I'm not joking. It does. So you can't make that claim. And Black Lion says, that I agree with, Zenny. Thanks. JT Day says, we'll introduce a standalone HB1 subtitle. Geez, okay, an anger words removed from the tax reform bill. What say you? I say good luck. Seriously. Eric Madison says, someone should give a deal to buy the Raiders that Mark Davis, they can't refuse. JT Day, welcome to the party. And Felix, I don't have any old NFL trading cards. I've never collected trading cards at all. Steve Dixon says the Vegas deal needs to die. Hey, let's watch what happens, okay? Let's watch what happens. The Barber says that they have a problem in that it would taint their fandom. What would? Jack Bauer says, what does the city of Oakland have against the Raiders? You got 3 hours to talk about it? Let me sum it up this way. The relocation bylaws in the NFL, the St. Louis judge says that relocation agreement isn't that those bylaws are a contract, and the NFL is being accused of violating that contract, and the judge says St. Louis is correct in wanting to sue the NFL and send the NFL to court, and off the court they go unless the NFL decides to settle. Get the picture? The NFL, with the Raiders and the Rams and the Chargers, took the same strategy and used them with all those cities. So what happens with St. Louis applies to the others. That's the issue. There is a right way and a wrong way to treat people. If you want to understand, think about the golden rule. What does the golden rule say? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. There's no one watching this program that should want to be treated the way the Raiders have treated the city of Oakland. Okay, I could go a step further and I could say, hey, look, the mayor of Oakland, Libby Schaaf, has told me on a number of occasions she called Mark Davis. Mark would not call her back. I have had other people send me emails I have never published about how certain Raiders brass, whose names I'm not going to say, have written disrespectful words about her to them, thinking it's not going to go anyplace else. Hey, I got them. Okay? I got them. My point is the Raiders have not been right or fair to the mayor. Now, it's fair to ask, would they treat a different mayor differently? Would they treat a male mayor differently than a female mayor? Or is it because the female mayor doesn't have a background in urban planning and doesn't think in terms of business? Okay? Would they? Here's my response there. My thought is no, because if the mayor had that background and still said, hey, we're not going to use public money, and it came out in the press, the Raiders would probably refer to her in ways that I am told, and they have referred to the current mayor, that were not right. Okay? Now, overall, I'll tell you why that's bad strategy. It's bad to do that. It's bad because when you're working in politics, you have to think of it as a continuum. You don't rest what you do on who the mayor is. You know why? You can start a political action committee, finance a competitor, make the necessary political relationships to get what you want, and move forward. You don't need to make enemies with the current mayor. The Raiders handled that incorrectly. It's a lesson on what not to do, in my opinion, in my experienced and humbled opinion. So, let's see here. We've got Barry Lee says, odds are very good that St. Louis will win because the courts already denied a motion from the NFL and the Raiders to dismiss the suit. Juan Ramirez says Mark Davis will go broke. John Mark says if Libby Schaaf was smart, she'd sue the Raiders for sexual harassment. Jack Hammer says, hey, Zinni, do you think the Oakland is rating if UNLV signs a lease so they can sue? Jack, why would they do it at that point? That's an interesting question. I'm hesitant to answer because, well, look, I don't have the right answer to that. But it's a fascinating question, which makes me want to do research from another perspective. Pedro says, new mayor, new relationship. Pedro, that's the way. Hey, that's the way. Of course, new president, new relationship. That's politics. But you have to engineer your politics. You have to engineer your relationships. A friend of mine who's a developer always would ask, Zinni, how's your relationship with this council member? Zinni, how's your relationship with that council member? That's what you do, okay? Smart politics. Don't pick fights. Or, let me put it another way. You know the old Mary Poppins song, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. You don't want to give them bitter medicine, right? You don't want to do that. So, all right. It's 9:28. And because of travel uncertainties, I'm going to stop at 9:45, which is 10:45 Eastern, which I think is a pretty good time slot. Okay, but again, when I get back to a normal situation with back east, um, now back in Oakland, I can have a different setup. Start, because in Oakland I started. This will be about what, 6:30. Okay, so or thereabouts. Or it'd be a really cool thing to do is if I could have more than one person do a live stream at different times. Of course, it wouldn't always be me, but it'd be on the same channel, right? The conversation, What do you guys think about that? What do you think I had, like different live stream time slots right here on this channel? Like I have one, and then maybe we have another one another time by another person and so on, but all along the same line. Maybe we each do an hour. What do you think about that? Oh, John Day says, who will have more say, Gruden or McKenzie? Well, more say over what? He's the head coach. He's the GM. It's a pretty even division. Hey, Joseph Bensman, how are you? Melvin Lovejoy, he says, they have to have your talent and great mind. You demand. Thanks, man. Thanks. Huh. But I'm thinking kind of like a radio station, right? You got Zinni at this time, at that time. That's what I'm thinking about. Because I have enough room here to do 50 individual live streams at once. 50. You heard me correctly. 50. I don't know. You guys remember that time where I had 2 live streams up at the same time at one point? Oh, which reminds me of, I'm not going to say it. But anyway, said in place, it would be a good idea for McKenzie to be the Raider owner. That wouldn't be bad. Oh, John Davis says draft the free agents. Okay. They would work together. I don't know why there are people who want to push McKenzie out because of Gruden. All right. Do you? I don't. Let me see something here. Got just typing here something. What I'm testing is, hold on a second. Let me find this. See if I'm correct. Okay. JT, do you have a suggestion for a live stream? Let's hear it. I'm just looking up something. Okay. Yeah, he's not. John Gruden's never been the GM anywhere, and it would be, because it'd be a McKenzie Gruden marriage. That's what you're looking at. It's not, and I don't know why people are so eager to throw Reggie McKenzie out just because John Gruden is coming in, discounting the fact that he's the general manager. John Marks says, Zinni, I'm working on a proposal on paper to get my radio station media company up and running this year. I will email you with a detailed proposal. You can look at it and tell me your thoughts. You got it. Seventh Place says, what do you think our #1 position need is? Running back. JT Day says, Sunday night, Oakland Hilton, 6-7 p.m. might be some great fun. Sunday night, you say you have an idea for a live? Oh, that's a great idea. Sunday night, I can't do it this Sunday night, but the Hilton Sunday night. That's a great idea. The Hilton. The question, can we get the Hilton just to give us the room? We have to pay for it? But that's a great idea to work on. Because the Hilton's Raider Central, right? God, I miss, it's too bad Francesco's closed. Because Francesco's would be another great place to have it. That's been Raiderville. You have it and then go and sit where Al Davis used to sit, right? And all that, right? So, you talk about Oakland history. But I like that. I love that idea. I really do. JT Day says, do you know why? JT Day, I'm all eyes. I can't hear you say anything, so I'm all eyes. Octavio says it's not because of Gruden, but McKenzie's record has been bad as general manager. He fired Hugh Jackson to hire Dennis Allen. I get it. I get that. It's just that people want to push McKenzie out the door and then assume that Gruden has a better eye for personnel in general than anybody else, and I haven't seen that play out. He's never been a GM for us to know that. He's only coached. Okay? So, and by the way, say a prayer for Rick Smith, the Texas GM. His wife has breast cancer. He took a leave of absence to help his wife. So I met Rick personally, great guy, and I wish him only the best. So yeah. Brock Line says the Hilton has a bar. Octavio says we could hire another GM. Yep. Oh, JT Day says coach. That's why. Got it. Okay. Gotcha, JT. And then he says maybe Gruden can use McKenzie picks more properly. And got it. John Mark says praying for Rick Smith. Thank you. Melvin Lovejoy says Reggie McKenzie brings in talent, and his contracts will keep him there. I guess right. It says keep him year. I think he meant here. Okay. The H is near the Y, so I think this is the H is up here, and the Y is here on the keyboard. So okay, all right. All right, it's 9:35, folks. So I got 10 minutes. So I answered running back to your question about need, and again, I would go after, and I've said this before, Saquon Barkley or Bryce Love, whichever is first, get them. You know, because by the time the Raiders pick, I seriously doubt that both of them are going to be available. But the Raiders can't go wrong getting one or the other. And then, and I need to see the Raiders draft picks. You know what I would do? I would trade back into the first round. I would get James Washington, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. That guy is going to be Hades to deal with in the league. I would simply draft him to keep him away from everybody else. I would not allow him to return kicks. I would get down the road in the draft, when I said down the road, I mean down the picks, I would get a specialist, somebody that can run the 40 in an ungodly fast time for that. And I get that person to specialize in that. But James Washington, I want James Washington as my premier receiver, and there's a reason. Because love Amari Cooper, but you need somebody. You're missing Crabtree. You've got Cordell Patterson, but you need two in this day and age, in this NFL, as fast as defenses are. You need two receivers that can take the top off the defense like that. If you had James Washington and Amari Cooper, you'd have that. Imagine that: Cooper, Washington, and Patterson. Those would be my top guys. And Roberts. Sure-handed, okay? And so you're saying, what about Johnny Morton? He's done a great job. I agree. I like Morton as kind of a wing guy, wing back, right? But if you want to go 5 wide, fine. You've got your group. But James Washington, I would trade back into the first round to get him. Yeah, definitely. Because he's not going to last long. He is the top yardage producer in Oklahoma State, or some people call it wide receiver U history. So, yeah. Eric Madison said, do you think the Raiders need a linebacker? I do. No, I don't think the Raiders need a linebacker so much as they need a scheme that keeps the linemen off the linebackers, and I'm not sold with this two-gapping jazz. I meant to do a video showing you from last year about the many ways. I don't care if it was Norton or Pagano. The linebackers are just simply not. They were not coached properly. Because I'm not going to say they didn't do something right, when at the end of the day, an athlete only does what the coach tells the athlete to do. You had one example where Khalil Mack is over the tight end on this side, and he's jumping back and forth. He jumped from the 7 gap to the 9 gap before it started. Like, why are you doing that? Stay home on the outside if I'm telling him to do that. Okay? If I'm telling him to do that. Chances are the coaches didn't tell him to just stay there. So they gave him this freedom to roam. That's the coach's fault. Last year's Raiders squad is replete with examples. And I don't care, again, who it was. It was Del Rio's defense. Period. Okay? Have I ever met John Gruden? Yes, I have. I know John Gruden. Octavio Arias says, I'm not saying we're best buddies or anything, but the way I've told, I met him through a mutual friend of ours, Charlie Santana Jr. 939. And so, Side of Play says, most people think Christian Kirk from Texas is A&M is the best receiver, but personally I would like either. Look at James Washington. I would show you a video here, word not for copyright reasons, but please look at James Washington. And so, let's see here. I've got John Davis says thinks Gruden will keep Crabtree. No, Crabtree's gone. Melvin Lovejoy likes the idea. Cool. Joseph Benson says, I definitely think the USC quarterback might need another year in college, but oh, wait, we'll see what he has in the pros. And that's the other thing, too. If, you know, Lamar Jackson's going to be a hoss. If the Raiders were to be in a position to get Lamar Jackson, they would have to question whether or not they needed Derek Carr as a starter. But that's, no, Lamar Jackson needs some polish. Forget that. Forget that. But Lamar Jackson is going to be the next Deshaun Watson. Right there. And the other guy that's going to be the next Deshaun Watson is the quarterback from Arizona, which is looking for a new coach, if you didn't know. So, what is this about? Black Lives? It's not the bar we seek. And Jack Hammer says, I don't think it's a woman's issue. Gene Kwan was friends with Mark. And, you know, Jack, that's a great point. I said that too. I'm glad you said that, Jack Hammer, because I said the same thing, and then someone, I'm not going to mention, corrected me and said, no, there were problems there too. And I was surprised because I've talked to Gene, and Gene would tell me I just had lunch with Mark, or I had this with Mark, and Gene never said anything, never uttered a cross word about Mark Davis, never said that Mark Davis was disrespecting her once. Okay? So I was surprised to hear that. And I don't know. I think that the one thing that the difference, let me put this and look at it from the Raiders' perspective, even though I don't like the way they handled it. For all of her faults, the one thing that Gene Kwan did not do was criticize the Raiders in the media. Okay? She never did that. And Gene Kwan was always about the deal. Yeah, people made fun of her about the whole Prince of Dubai thing, right? But take the mistake away from her and look at it from another perspective. She was just trying to get something done. And I think the Raiders appreciated that. But something else that Gene had as an advantage that Libby didn't have and doesn't have, but could have if she hired the right people, was a person like Fred Blackwell, who was first assistant city administrator and designated sports person, right? And then city administrator. But what happened with Fred in 2014 was he looked at the handwriting on the wall and thought, you know what? My boss, Gene Kwan, is not popular. If she doesn't get reelected, I'm not going to hold on to my job because someone's going to want to replace me. He started looking around. The San Francisco Foundation said, we want you as CEO. He jumped across the bay. He didn't have to move. He just changed where he went to work in the morning. Perfect. And he was in and is in a job he loves. No stress like that. So if Libby had that, yeah. But what Libby did that was a gigantic mistake was that she tried to make Claudia Capio. Warriors, by the way, beat the Rockets. Woohoo! 124 to 114. Go Warriors! Take that, James Harden. Anyway, Libby tried to make now retired Claudia Capio, the assistant city administrator, into Fred Blackwell. And I'm sorry, she's not that at all. She just wasn't that. And I think Libby tried to make a statement about who could handle the sports thing. In other words, instead of it being the typical male, you know, we get the, right? So we get a female who you wouldn't expect to be able to handle it. I understood what Libby was doing. That was the message she was sending. She was literally, you know, pushing it down the throat of us. And there's nothing, look, there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. But what Libby needed to do was give Claudia some help. She didn't have it. She didn't have a task force. And so she sort of she put Claudia out to dry. You know, no one wanted to say that they liked working with her, but people I talked to during the course of the time that Claudia was working her way into learning the ropes were saying, well, she's a great study and she's asking good questions. But reading between the lines, it was she still has a long way to go, or she's not Fred Blackwell. And I know for a fact the Raiders missed Fred Blackwell. They just missed him. Okay. So Gene Kwan's secret weapon with respect to the Raiders wasn't a weapon at all. It was an emissary. It was Fred Blackwell. All right. And so by contrast, from that perspective in the situation, Libby did not handle it well at all. She screwed up. I'm saying that right here. That's what she did. Okay. So, sorry, I'm missing your comments here. Joseph Benson says, my Giants should take the top quarterback. Someplace, if you have 2 top 5 picks, you better be able to get at least 1 win. You mean kind of like, yeah, okay. Black Lion Supreme says, go Warriors. John Davis says, Browns need to draft another quarterback? No. He says on every round. Joseph Benson says, I wonder if the Browns will have another solid draft like last year and yet have another sorry season next year. Hope not for Cleveland's sake. If Hugh can, Hugh's got some schematic problems with his offense he needs to shore up. He was given a blessing. The Barber says Mark Davis is, I'm not going to repeat that. Rave Script says a QB. We need D-line pressure. We need Vita Vey, Christina Wilkins, Wilson, and Bradley Chubb. No. We keep saying that every year. Every year we say we need a D tackle. And I'm telling you, and I've said it before, I don't care what, I mean, if you base our defensive need on last year's defense, I'm saying that's a bad idea. Why? Because we start all over, right? It's a clean slate. So my point is we have talent that was in the wrong defense. The wrong defense. And it needs to be in a single gap, not a 2 gap. It needs to be in a 4-man front. They need to have the classic ends. They need to sit them down and stop all this elephant jazz. It structurally does not work well against the run. It just doesn't, all right? So I disagree with you there. Okay, so folks, Joseph Vince says, have you seen that young basketball player at Oklahoma? I haven't seen him, but I'm going to do this. It's 9:47 in the Central, which is 10:47 in the East, and I'm going to sign off right now because I have to get up. All right, everybody. This has been another fun, rousing evening. Thank you all. And tomorrow, I'm going to try for about the same time. I'm going to be back in Atlanta. So, it would be intriguing to start earlier. I may even try to start earlier than this, because that would be 6:30. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to be back in Atlanta. So, Yeah, I'll go back to my normal time because of that. I can't work that out either way because it's Eastern. So yeah, normal time slot tomorrow. All right. As John Marks would say, watch horror films, keep America strong. And I've got some horror movies that I've got to review. Actually, I get a lot of reviews on films. Remember Megan Fields Johnson? I got to go back to that. All right. Black Lion says, Zinni, had you been made the go-between between the Raiders and the city of Oakland, would it be the kind of relationship you decide tonight? You can answer that. No, I would be a very good go-between, an emissary, yeah. Because what I have is an advantage. I understand how the Raiders are thinking in terms of stadiums. I know the NFL people. Yeah, I think so. All right, good night, everybody. I'll see you guys later. All right. Okay. See you all Friday. Thank you. See you all guys later. Thanks. Okay.